Mega Aerodactyl has dominated VGC Regulation MA and is still running rampant in Regulation MB as well. Now, why is Mega Aerodactyl so strong in this format, and specifically, why has this core just seem unstoppable? Well, first, Mega Aerodactyl has a base 150 speed stat, making it faster than almost everything in the game. This allows its partners to take advantage of dynamic speed with Tailwind support, and while Aerodactyl isn't known for bulk, with some investment, it can actually survive a lot of common attacks. Where Mega Aerodactyl really shines though is next to Kingambit, with this duo being an incredible lead. Defiant from Kingambit is able to help punish Intimidate, slowing down Aero, while Aero is able to threaten the fire and fighting types that Kingambit doesn't appreciate. Dual Wing Beats is able to knock out Sneasels through Focus Sash, while Rockslide is able to crush Charizards. Kingambit on the other hand helps with opposing Kingambit and Tyranitar with Low Kick, threatens Basculegion with Dark type moves, and Iron Head for opposing Aerodactyls and Fairy types. And if all else goes wrong, Mega Aerodactyl threatening a fast Rock Slide with a 30% chance to flinch each target can swing the odds of a game in your favor. Sylveon has a strong special fairy that can help break through physical walls that Gambit and Aero struggle with, such as Archaludon, bulky water types, and Garchomps. Speaking of Garchomp, a fast ground type that is able to hit hard with Sylveon, as everything that resists fairy moves is hit super effectively by ground moves, along with its great stat total, makes it a no-brainer on this team. Mega Charizard Y not only pairs well with Garchomp as another ground immediate, allowing it to click Earthquake freely, but also loves taking advantage of Tailwind that can be set up from regular Aerodactyl. It can allow for multiple modes, but also helps reduce the damage from Basculegion that can hit everything on this team hard with Wave Crash, and is a must bring into the rain matchup to override with Weather Control. The final Pokemon on this team can vary, as for instance, Basculegion was able to win NAIC as the power of Last Respects is broken, but the most common version involves Farigiraf, providing another form of speed control in Trick Room, making the team more flexible, but also helping with blocking priority moves, which is something that Mega Aerodactyl doesn't like dealing with. Today we'll be exploring why this team is one of the best teams currently in this format. So this is the version that I will be showcasing in today's video, and I will also explain some of the differences that you can see potentially on this team, as well as some spread changes too. But also a huge shout out to Michael Kelsch, who did provide the EV spreads for this version. So if you do want to go check him out, down below in the description, I will link him. But let's break down the team. So let's break down the team real quick. We have Aerodactyl, of course, with a Nerve, which is a great ability, especially preventing the opponent from eating the Resist Berries and Citrus Berries when non-Mega Evolved can be pretty important against, for instance, Chople Berry Kingambit, allowing your Kingambit to one-shot them. And of course, Cobra Berry on like Farigiraf or the Basculegion sometimes can be pretty nice. You're always going to be running Rock Slide and Tailwind, especially for speed control and the fast Rock Slide, of course, also Flinch as well. And then usually with Mega Aerodactyl, we'll always be running Dual Wing Beats to be able to hit the Sneasler, and of course same type attack bonus with Tough Claws boost can be very much appreciated. Last move, it usually comes down to either Protect, but not many players will run Protect on Aerodactyl. It's usually either Wide Guard for utility because it helps support the Charizard. The version NIC that had Basculegion did have Wide Guard on this slot, or sometimes Ice Fang to be able to help out against opposing Garchomp. So you will be running either one of Ice Fang or Wide Guard usually on this team. So EV spread wise, usually will always be max speed Aerodactyl, because it's really important to Mega Aerodactyl mirror because of how common this team is. Being able to have the chance to even move first is really important, because that fast Rock Slide can really matter. One, to avoid getting Rock Slide flinched by your opposing Mega Aerodactyl, but also to flinch them as well. Yeah, it can be pretty toxic of a mirror. Usually Mega Aerodactyl wants to run a bit of bulk to be able to survive attacks, so it can stick around, maybe get a secondary Tailwind up, or again stick around, throw off some Rock Slides, and of course the odds can be pretty favorable. So you will have quite a bit of variance between the bulk. This one that we have here is able to survive stuff like the Mega Frost Blast Blizzards, the Moonblast from Floette. We have sometimes Heat Wave and the Solar Beam from Charizard Y. Sometimes Iron Head from Kingambit, depending on their spread. So it can be a very effective Aerodactyl that can just stick around, which is pretty nice. Kingambit on this team, it can vary, but usually it's almost always Focus Sash, and then the other times you are going to be seeing the Chople Berry if you see like Focus Sash on, for instance, a Basculegion on this variant of the team. But usually Focus Sash is pretty common on these Kingambits because it's able to stick around, able to run max speed, which means that with Tailwind and added max speed, you're able to outspeed the base 130s like the Mega Gengar and multiple Pokemon below it, which is pretty nice. It's able to run 4 attacks, and you're pretty much just always running 4 attacks on this because Sucker Punch priority is too important. Kowtow Cleave to be able to just hit a bunch of stuff like giraffes and multiple other Pokemon is really nice. Basculegion more. Iron Head is really important, as we mentioned before, because of the fairies, as well as opposing Mega Aerodactyl. Low Kick important for opposing Kingambit. That can be pretty annoying. EV spread on the Kingambit usually will always be max attack and max speed, especially on the Focus Sash variants, because of the fact that you want as much damage as possible with the adamant nature especially. Jolly is sometimes you'll see on ladder, but it does miss a lot of KO, so you do want adamant, especially with those sucker punches, which can be really important overall. So I would say adamant is probably going to be your best shot. Sometimes on the Choppleberry sets, you'll see them sacrifice a little bit of speed, maybe have some bulk instead. But in most cases, you will be running into very fast Kingambits on this team specifically. Then Garchomp, pretty standard Garchomp for the most part. They are usually always almost max speed with the Life Orb. And this is just to dish out a bunch of damage. Sometimes you'll see like maybe Roselli Berry or Citrus Berry if they have like a Basculegion, because sometimes they run Life Orb on the Basculegion instead. But across the board, usually you will be seeing a very fast Garchomp on this team that's able to usually run multiple ground moves instead of running Rock Slide that we commonly see, because you want to have, for instance, the ability to click Stomping Tantrum next to Hyper Voice from Sylveon without having to like protect and then go for Earthquake, which can be very passive, especially stalling out your own potential Tailwind turns. So we usually see double ground type move, and you don't need the rock coverage because you do have, for instance, your Aerodactyl, which is supposed to have the rock coverage for the Charizard specifically. So that's the idea here. And again, usually will always be like max speed. Sometimes they'll run some bulk on the Garchomp if there's a Citrus or the Roselli Berry sometimes, but in most cases you will be seeing a pretty fast Garchomp, especially because of how common Garchomp is. Max speed is pretty common. Then Sylveon. Sylveons can vary a lot because it depends on the speed stat that the players want to hit. Sometimes they run like 85 just to be able to outspeed the Eternal Floettes and Garchomps under Tailwind while still being pretty slow, so you can utilize the Trick Room a bit more effectively. Sometimes they'll have a little bit more speed to be able to outspeed like Adamant Sneaslers under Tailwind, and then sometimes they'll just be able to outspeed stuff like the base 110s under the Tailwind. So there are multiple different stats that you can hit with Sylveon. Sometimes they're bulky with a good amount of defense and less special attack. Sometimes they just have a really high amount of special attack and a little bit less bulk because it really just wants to blow up something, especially with that Hyper Beam, especially for that Archalon, as I mentioned before. So there's a lot of ways that you can play around Sylveon. The spread that we're currently using is able to outspeed the base 110s, which is pretty nice, as well as just dish out as much damage as possible, especially for that Hyper Beam into Archalons and break through with those Hyper Voices under Tailwind or Trick Room, especially, while having a good odds to be able to live like Dire Claw from some of the Sneaslers in the format. So you're always going to be running this Hyper Beam, Hyper Voice, Quick Attack Sylveon with Fairy Fighter. Quick Attack for that priority is just too good, especially in this kind of format. Then next Pokemon is Charizard, Charizard Y. This can actually run a few different EV adjustments. Usually, I would say a lot of players do tend towards a bulky Charizard, but sometimes they can run fast Charizard as well on this team that are offensive. But yeah, there's multiple different ways you can EV Charizard, but I'd say more commonly right now, defensive Charizard is definitely on the rise, especially just being able to survive. For instance, this one from here is going to be able to survive a Life Orb Rock Slide from opposing Garchomp, so that can be pretty solid indeed. Also lives like +2 Sucker Punch from Black Glass's Kingambit, which is pretty nice. And the speed is able to speed creep like Mega Swampert, which can be nice because being able to turn off the rain so they don't have Swift Swim and then be able to outspeed the Adamant Mega Swampert and go for Solar Beam is pretty nice. Again, really important in the Weather Mirror, but sometimes you'll see maybe more special attack, more speed instead of defense. It really just depends on player preference. But again, multiple ways you can EV Charizard, but the moveset's pretty much just always going to stay the same. Heat Wave, Weather Ball, Solar Beam, Protect. It's just a standard Charizard Y. It's just really effective at what it does because it does so much damage under the sun. And final mon on this team, we are going to be using Ferrograph. As I mentioned before, Basculegion is definitely a mon that you can see on this team. Sometimes it will be Focus Sash on the Basculegion. Again, Choppleberry on the Kingambit. Sometimes it's actually Life Orb on the Basculegion. Sometimes it's Mystic Water on the Basculegion on these teams. But as I mentioned before, Basculegion can definitely be utilized over Ferrograph, and they tend to be like really fast in general to take advantage of Tailwind and just like really big offense. But Ferrograph, I'd say, is the more common one, and there's like multiple different ways that you could run Ferrograph, especially with its move pool. So a lot of Ferrographs on these teams will, of course, have the Armor Tail and usually the Citrus Berry over the Cobra Berry just for general staying power. And then moveset wise, it can pretty much differ a lot of different ways. Trick Room is usually always just a move that's going to be consistent for Farigiraf because you want to have that mode of Trick Room on the team, so Sylveon can dish out a lot of damage, and even Kingambit, since it's not the fastest mon, even with the speed investment, can take advantage of it. But usually Trick Room will always be the staple. Psychic, sometimes you'll see Psyshock and Twin Beam, but realistically Psychic is usually the most common move on the Farigiraf because it does the most damage. And usually Thunderbolt as well. Thunderbolt is able to help out against like Pelipper, do a bit more damage to Basket Legion, Charizard Y, which can be pretty nice. And then sometimes you'll see different moves depending on the set. For instance, there was Protect on Farigiraf because it's a pretty good staple. If you do Protect Farigiraf and they double into it, trying to deny Trick Room, it's very effective. And also just keeping that Armor Tail on deck as much as possible. Sometimes you will see Helping Hand on this team instead of like one of the coverage options like Psychic or Thunderbolt. So you can go for like Trick Room and then go for like a Helping Hand, big KO with like Charizard or Sylveon, or sometimes you'll have like Farigiraf next to Garchomp and Kingambit, Helping Hand Sucker Punch, Helping Hand Life Orb attack from Garchomp is also a way to blow up. So yeah, there's like quite a few different ways. And then Roar, which is probably one of the more common ones. It was the one that was able to get second place at NIC, and Roar can be pretty interesting. It's really nice into the weather matchups because you can lead Charizard plus Farigiraf, Mega Evolve immediately, so you don't have to worry about usually like Pelipper switching in. Go for a really strong attack with Charizard, and then Roar out so you can maintain the advantage of just having the weather control, which is pretty nice. And another thing you can do, there's a lot of self-Roar plays that you can go for, of course, just to get free switches into something in the back that could be nice. But also, like, of course, with Hyper Beam with Sylveon, you can go for Hyper Beam and then Roar out your Sylveon, so you don't have to have a dead slot charging up the next turn. Instead, you could get a free switch into a slot that can actually do something. So that's one way you can play around it. But yeah, there's a lot of Roar plays. You can deny Trick Rooms, of course. You can, of course, play around Perish this way. A lot of things they can accomplish with Roar Farigiraf. But there are a lot of different versions of this team, as I mentioned before, and movesets that you can run on Farigiraf. And they tend to can vary just depending on player preference. The EV spread on Farigiraf, though, they usually will always run either Bolt or Relax. Usually Bolt, I think, is probably better because you have access to Tailwind the Aerodactyl, which can be a thing because sometimes you'll bring Aerodactyl with the Farigiraf, and we'll run the Bold Nature because the fact you want to be able to survive stuff like Black Glasses, Kowtow Cleave from Kingambit, Life Orb Wave Crash from Basket Legion is a really big one. And you still want to have a good amount of special defense to be able to survive like Weather Ball from Charizard Y, because that is a really powerful attack that is a must for Farigiraf to survive in order to set up the Trick Room. So that's what this Farigiraf is able to accomplish. A lot of them are pretty defensive and will have that even HP stat for the Citrus Berry recovery from Super Fang. So that is the idea of this Farigiraf spread. It's pretty common for like Farigirafs to be disinvest into physical defense, especially while having a solid amount of special defense to again tank the Weather Ball from Charizard Y. I also did want to make a note about this team where even though it technically isn't a Mega Aerodactyl team, there is a team that is just very similar to the core composition of this, which involves regular Aerodactyl with Focus Sash alongside the Incineroar over the Kingambit instead. This team version has been piloted by Marco Silva, who ended up top cutting the North American International Championship, as well as winning several online tournaments with this version. It plays a bit differently from the one we are currently showcasing, but it is an option that you do have where Incineroar Quest with Fake Out and Intimidate support can help out with the team in order to allow the Sylveon as well as the solo Mega Charizard Y to really just be able to run through, especially playing a bit more defensively and having a bit more ways to be able to enable the speed control methods, especially with the Tailwind and the access to the Trick Room. So what are the common leads with the team? Aerodactyl plus Kingambit is just a really strong one, but there's a lot of flexible leads that you can go with this team. Just any Tailwind mode with Aerodactyl, where it's Aerodactyl plus Sylveon, Aerodactyl plus Kingambit, Aerodactyl plus Garchomp, even Aerodactyl plus Charizard and Mega Evolve your Charizard. All effective routes because of how fast Aerodactyl is and that fast Tailwind is just so supportive with the rest of the team. Then of course there are different modes that you can go with lead wise if you don't want to lead the Aerodactyl straight away. You can try and figure out what your opponent's going to lead, maybe lead something just that's offensive and does a lot of damage. For instance, the Charizard plus Garchomp is pretty strong, fast EQ into a fast fire type attack. In the sun can do a ton of damage alongside Charizard plus Sylveon, Garchomp plus Sylveon. All pretty effective ways because it does a ton of damage and it's really hard to be able to switch into the combination of attacks. Kingambit does like to lead because of his Focus Sash and does dish out a good amount of damage, especially with the coverage that it does have access to. You can lead it with your physical attackers like the Kingambit plus the Garchomp can do a lot. You can scare away those Intimidates or punish them and do a ton of damage there. Priority Sucker Punch can help enable for a fast knockout from Garchomp or Charizard. And of course, Kingambit Sylveon can actually do a good amount of damage, especially into a slower pacing team. So Farigiraf can lead with this team, and it is a pretty effective lead if you want to set up the Trick Room, or if you just want the ability to be able to just block priority moves with the partner, because of the fact that Charizard is able to do a lot of damage, especially when it doesn't have to worry about like Fake Out, for instance. So you can just spam attacks with like the Charizard or the Garchomp, which is pretty effective. Or you can of course pair it with the Sylveon Kingambit, have access to just going for Trick Room and some strong damage with the Kingambit as well, is very much appreciated too. But usually Farigiraf will want to be kept in the back, other than maybe against a rain mode, where that Farigiraf Charizard really does shine, because you can go for a Mega Evolution with Charizard, go for a Side Roar, can be pretty effective. It's also pretty good with the Sylveon. You can go for Side Roar when you click Hyper Beam, get a nuke, and then the Sylveon will instead retreat back after that roar, get a free switch into something, so you don't have a slot that is basically vulnerable for that rest of the second turn. So that's another powerful mode that could be happening here. And of course Farigiraf with just Armor Tail, just being able to switch in the back can be really effective. Even on the tailwind route can be really strong, because if they get one call especially wrong with going for a priority move, and then you're able to score a knockout because you blocked that priority move, it can be a really big turning point in the game, especially in the balance matchup, where against the Floette setup teams with Kingambit, with a Defiant Boost potentially against an Incineroar, if you have that Armor Tail with Farigiraf next to Kingambit while the Kingambit's under Tailwind, can be really devastating for opponents. So that's another way Farigiraf can just be really appreciated. But yeah, multiple different flexible leads with this team, and it's really hard to say. I'd say overall this team has pretty solid matchups across the board. It's usually even. You just have a lot of tools that you're able to play around most matchups. The one really negative one probably is going to be the rain matchup, but it really depends on the sets that you do have access to. Of course, if you do fight the rain mode, then if you do have Roar on the Farigiraf, it makes it a bit easier. Still not like completely free, but still really strong, because you do have access to just going for really powerful attacks with Charizard, maintaining weather advantage, and of course the Hyper Beam threat from the Sylveons, of course, very much appreciated as well. But also, like, in general, that's probably one of the scariest modes for the team, especially if you're running the Basket Legion version. Still playable across the board, but definitely pretty something you have to watch out for, especially with the Mega Swampert that can just threaten a lot of damage. So that is an explanation of the team. Let us get into showcasing the team and how it plays. All right, we have Politoed, Mawile, Farigiraf with Scrafty, Sinistra, and Swampert. So this is a very interesting take on Rain. All right. I really do like the Roar Farigiraf here. As I mentioned earlier in the video, one strategy you can do with the Roar Farigiraf is you can lead the Charizard plus the Farigiraf and actually roar out the Charizard, and it can do a medium amount of damage, which is pretty nice, and you still maintain control of the weather, which is fantastic. I don't think I need Garchomp in this matchup. I don't think so. I think it's probably Kingambit, Sylveon. Aerodactyl doesn't really do much here because it's not really a Pokemon that clicks Rock Slide. The speed control isn't really necessary against this because most of my Pokemon are faster generally. And Garchomp is like one I could debate about because it actually does do some pretty good damage, especially in just that Mawile. But I do really like the Sylveon to do a lot of damage in general. There's not really much of a fairy resist on my opponent's team other than the Mawile. And Mawile doesn't even take Hyper Voice that well. So I think it's always Scrafty. And then Kingambit just does so much damage to my opponent's team, especially the two Pokemon that can set up Trick Room. So I think this is pretty good here. Maybe I could have done something different lead-wise, but I do like the idea of just setting up the Roar strat immediately and dishing out as much damage as possible. So let's see what my opponent decides to go with here. Gonna be Mawile Farigiraf. I mean, I like Charizard, so looking pretty good here. Now I have a few plays that I could go for. I don't think they're gonna hard switch into Politoed immediately. This might be an attempt that they go for Trick Room. So if they go for Trick Room, I actually have a few plays I can go for. One is I could go for Roar into the Farigiraf and click Heat Wave immediately. I don't know if the Mawile would aggressively attack here against a Charizard. Like, it's really, I think, tough to say you would do that. So I'm thinking of going for Roar into Farigiraf and Heat Wave because this denies Protect Trick Room if they go for Trick Room with the Mawile. Or Trick Room Protect with the Mawile. And yeah, they do protect the Mawile, so I'm assuming this is Trick Room. And what this allows me to do is I didn't Mega Evolve because I want to make sure that I save the ability to Mega Evolve if I do roar in like the Politoed, for example. So we do get a Heat Wave off, we get some free damage. They go for Dazzling Gleam, which is smart, so they do get some chip damage. But granted, they're still not in a really that great of a spot. Like, they got a bit of damage, but it's not really too much. But Dazzling Gleam is pretty interesting to note here. So we do get the Roar off into Farigiraf, and we do force out the Politoed, exactly why we wanted to go for something like this. Because now we can go for a Roar and a Heat Wave here. Or we could go for a Weather Ball if I really want to, but the Politoed I think has to retreat, and Mawaw's already threatened by the Heat Wave. I really like the idea of just like getting as much damage as I possibly can, so it might be a bit greedy, but I do think that I'd rather just go for the Heat Wave and play aggressive with Charizard here. So we will Mega Evolve, go for Heat Wave. They most likely have to switch out one, if not both here, and we are going to see the swap, so this is going to be Farigiraf, which is perfect. So I am able to get some free damage into Farigiraf. And what's nice about this is I can bring in either Sylveon or Kingambit and get a bunch of damage off into Farigiraf to put in range of Kowtow and just deny Trick Room from potentially ever coming out here. So we will get the Drought set up, and Heat Wave, please hit the Giraffe. That's what they get for not going for Weather Ball, but unfortunate, okay? As we do get a Heat Wave damage off into Politoed, goes for a Weather Ball into Farigiraf to get some damage, sure. Alright, what are we getting in Sylveon or Kingambit? If it's Sylveon, I'm probably going to go for Hyper Beam. Okay, Sylveon came in. Perfect, that's fine. We're going to go for Hyper Beam plus Roar here into the Sylveon. Because I need to eliminate the Giraffe as quickly as possible to deny potential Trick Rooms in the later part. Sure, I could like Roar to Farigiraf and Hyper Voice. Like, there's no... Mawile doesn't really switch in pretty comfortably, so I guess I could also go for that as well. I guess that's not too bad. I was thinking of Hyper Beam for the immediate damage. I am risking a miss, but I mean, come on, don't let me miss Heat Wave and Hyper Beam multiple times in a row. Actually, I do like the idea of Roar, though. I do like the idea of Roar into the Giraffe and Hyper Voice, because there's not really much of a switch that they have here that's really good here. So we're going to see the Politoed switch out into Sinistcha, which is going to also heal the Giraffe. So I'm kind of glad I went for this because Hyper Beam might have not KO'd the Giraffe, but this Hyper Voice will do a ton of damage and they're out of position. So I don't mind this as I do get pretty good damage, and they go for Psychic Noise, which is completely fine. Doesn't really do that much damage to Sylveon. Ideally, we get in Politoed, because if we get in Politoed, we can go for Psychic plus Hyper Voice pretty safely here. But if it's Mawile, I'm probably clicking like Hyper Voice, and we are going to see the Mawile come out. So a little bit unfortunate, but granted, not too big of a deal. At this point, I feel Kingambit's going to be in a pretty prime position as well at this point, because we've already gotten like a lot of damage into my opponent's team. I'm just going to go for a Psychic into the Sinistcha slot, and I'm going to go for Hyper Voice, because I want to deny a Trick Room from the Sinistcha. You might think, oh, I could Roar to Sinistcha, but realistically, I just go for as much damage as I possibly can here. If they go for Protect with Sinistcha, that's fine. But let's see what they decide here. Okay, they do just go for Matcha Gotcha, which is completely acceptable for me. I think I should get the KO with Psychic plus Hyper Voice since it wasn't Citrus, unless we got like one of those Ghost procs where it's like a little bit above 50%, but it just has 50% on the bar. So here comes a Hyper Voice. Good damage. Does Psychic KO? Ideally it does. If not, it's not like the craziest big deal, but let's see. Yeah, we do KO the Sinistcha, perfect, and then we can bring in Gambit the next turn, and Gambit's looking pretty nice here. They go for Rock Slide, which doesn't KO Sylveon either, so that's okay. That is okay, although it depends on the Politoed. If the Politoed has speed, it could outspeed my Sylveon here because I speed tie with, well, I speed tie with both no speed Sinistcha and no speed Politoed. So that's a bit unfortunate, but we do see the Farigiraf come in, which is fine. I can go out into Kingambit just because I want to preserve a mon for the weather matchup, and I can go for Hyper Beam into the Giraffe. And I think that's pretty good. I could go for Hyper Beam Thunderbolt and a Mawile too, which is also a pretty reasonable play. I could go for Hyper Voice here, but I don't know if Hyper Voice plus like Thunderbolt would knock out the Farigiraf. So unless I make a crazy hard play of going for like Sucker Punch into Sylveon here and Trick Room, I mean, I'd have to applaud my opponent at that point, but I just really don't see that being very likely here. Especially when I could, again, go for like Hyper Beam, stay in, and click Thunderbolt with a double up here into one of Farigiraf or Mawile. So let's see, because Hyper Beam and the Thunderbolt would KO either of these Pokemon. So let's bring out Kingambit. Let's see what they decide here. Nice, we do hit the Hyper Beam, so we win the Weather War, so that's pretty nice. We get rid of the Farigiraf, and that is a huge one. And now we can go out into Giraffe here, or do I want to go out into my other slot? They go for Play Rough, which is smart, but it's still pretty okay for me here because at this point, I just can't see them really being able to break through my Charizard here. So I could go out into Farigiraf, or I could go for an attack here. But realistically, if I'm that worried about an attack, I think I'm just going to go for Kowtow Cleave into the Politoed at this point. Let's go for Kowtow Cleave here. We might have to hit a Heat Wave with Charizard in the endgame, but we're still pretty alright here. Sylveon is going to take its turn to recharge, so it's probably going down here. Mawile, it could Sucker Punch the Gambit, but again, like, I can't really cover for Sucker Punch Weather Ball taking a KO on that slot, and I'd rather not risk them getting a double knockout here, because then I'm in a weird spot. They Sucker Punch the Sylveon for some reason. Why did they Sucker Punch the Sylveon? I don't know why. Okay, I get a Kowtow off into Politoed, does bring it to Citrus Berry range, makes sense, and we do see Weather Ball. Okay. I don't know why they went for Sucker Punch there. I really don't know why they went for Sucker Punch here. Because now... I have a few plays that I'm thinking here. Thinking of going out into Charizard, or I could go Farig. I think Charizard makes sense here because I can just dress into Weather Ball or Solar Beam, which I think is pretty good here. I think Weather Ball Protect makes so much sense here. Yeah, I think Weather Ball Protect is my best play here. I guess they could be Helping Hand, but I should live Helping Hand Sucker Punch because of how much defense I have on the Charizard. I think my best play is just to detect Sylveon, click Weather Ball and a Mawile. If they protect Mawile, it's fine. They protect Politoed in case of Solar Beam, I guess, because they're hoping that I'm worried about the Perish Song endgame. But that's why I'm detecting with Sylveon, because I'm making sure that I just don't go down to Perish. And I'm just hoping that, like, I'm not risking Heat Wave at this point. I would either Solar Beam or I would Weather Ball here in this position. So I get the Weather Ball and a Mawile. The game's over now because now I can just Solar Beam into the Politoed very safely. So, okay. Really nice. I think Roar Farigiraf was able to showcase how strong it could be, and the power of just being able to kind of like play around this Weather War was really nice. And the denial trick, of course. Okay, we have Sarilege, Milotic, Raichu with Ninetales, Sinisha, and Sneasler. So we have like a set of balanced team with the Sarilege. Okay, this matchup is pretty alright. I don't want to bring Charizard. I think Aerodactyl plus the Kingambit is really solid here. So I think that's probably what I want to go lead-wise. It's pretty strong against my opponent's team in general. The question is, do I want to bring Farigiraf or not? I don't think so. I don't think it's really worth it. I think Garchomp's just really good here. And I think Sylveon, just so I can pressure Coil Milotic, is going to be pretty big. So I think that's the form brain. The question is, like, in what order? I think Aerodactyl plus Kingambit's still a really good lead in general. Also, no, it's Sinnoh, which is actually a pretty interesting note, actually. So maybe I should just lead off with the Garchomp. I think Aerodactyl Kingambit, though, is just generally fine for the most part, with Sylveon plus the Garchomp in the back. Because with Aerodactyl plus Kingambit, I'm not like too scared of a one specific Mon lead. If they lead Sneasler, I can always draw in with Dual Wing Beat. If they lead Ninetales, then I draw in with Iron Head, so it's not like too bad here. Let's see what my opponent decides to go with. It's going to be Raichu Ninetales, which is fine. Okay. As I do lead Aerodactyl plus Kingambit. And I have a lot of plays that I can go for. I could go for Sucker Punch plus Rock Slide if I expect this not to be Fake Out. And if it's like Zap Cannon, I can go for Iron Head here plus Rock Slide as well. That's not like a terrible play, but ideally that's probably the one I would want to avoid here. So a lot of things I can do. I think my best play here is probably to click... I want to click Rock Slide Sucker Punch so badly into the Raichu, because like Ninetales doesn't knock out the Aerodactyl, and just getting chip damage into Raichu would be pretty good. Although the question is, do they click Fake Out or not, because that's a pretty big one. I think Sucker Punch and a Rock Slide should knock out even a bulky Raichu, and I really want to dodge like a Zap Cannon, so you know what, I'm going for it. We're going to see the Ninetales retreat, okay, into Milo. I want to say that means the Raichu is attacking, or maybe protects. But if it attacks here, I'm in such a good spot. And I mean such a good spot. So they want to make... I'm assuming the Ninetales isn't Sash if they make this play. Maybe it's Never Melt Ice. But we are going to see the Mega Raichu, which means it's probably clicking... I want to assume it's like either fake out or it's going to be an attack here. Because he would probably protect otherwise. Okay, nice. I do get this call right. So I get a Sucker Punch off. Rock Slide will be close. I think it should though. Oh, barely misses a knockout in the right. Shoot, that's unfortunate for me. Oh, but of course, that's kind of the big thing about Aerodactyl. It can flinch. So I get a very lucky flinch there. Okay. Very lucky flinch. But you know what? I ain't complaining. So now, because that is what Aerodactyl does realistically. That is what Aerodactyl does. I'm kind of curious on if they went for Focus Blast or Zap Cannon into a slot, but right now, I'm just always clicking Rock Slide and I'm always kowtowing the Milotic slot. I'm just building up damage into that Milo. They're going to just sack the Raichu here, which is perfect for me since I get a lot of damage built up into Milo. So this is pretty nice. I'm not really that worried about Blizzard. They go for Coil immediately, which is fine because they've already taken a lot of damage. So the Sylveon, once I get Sylveon into position, should be able to beat the Milo. I just need to get a Hyper Beam off once. So yeah, especially with a lot of these Milo plus Sinistcha teams, they don't tend to run Recover on the Milo, which makes my job makes my life a lot easier. So let's see if this is Ninetales coming in. Ninetales coming in. I think I'm just going to Tailwind Iron Head. They could protect, I suppose, but if they protect, that's fine. Yeah, and they might just be going for Hypnosis Blizzard. So that's why I went for Tailwind Iron Head here. Let's see if you were Sash or not. I kind of assume not if you were making this play, but let's see. Yeah, it's not. So I get the KO on Ninetales. My Garchomp's looking really good in this endgame as well. So we're kind of just running away with the game here as Hypnosis does come out of Gambit. This was 80% chance to hit, 20% chance to miss, but Gambit's already done a lot of work that I needed to do. Although there is still the Ceruledge that I guess could still run away with the game, but we have a Garchomp in the back and we have Sylveon and they do realize that, so they are going to forfeit. So the turn one I got correct. I didn't think Raichu was going to be bulking out to survive, but you know, Aerodactyl doing Aerodactyl things. All right, we have Lopunny, Swampert, Basculegion with Pelipper, Farigiraf, and Archaludon. This is a weird matchup because they have Lopunny. Lopunny probably has Rain Dance, I'm assuming, on this kind of build. Or it could be U-Turn as well. That makes it quite difficult for my Charizard to see play here. Okay. This is going to be a bit of a scary one for sure. Yeah, this is going to be a tough one. Although they can't thankfully bring both Lopunny and Swampert, it's still going to be a little bit difficult. But I want to lead here. Aerodactyl does threaten Lopunny and does outspeed it, but of course not bringing in a rain matchup is obviously not super ideal, so this is going to be a bit of a tough one. I could go with the Charizard mode again, and the Charizard mode is just generally fine. I think I probably will just lead Farigiraf plus Charizard, or do I just lead Sylveon plus Charizard? Sylveon plus Charizard's not bad either. I think I'll lead Sylveon plus Charizard actually. I think offensively I want Sylveon on deck and then have Farigiraf plus Kingambit. Yeah, I think this is okay. The only thing is if they lead something like Basculegion, maybe I could have led Kingambit to counter the Basculegion Lopunny lead, because if this is like some U-turn strat, I would be able to at least threaten the Sucker Punch. But yeah, this is not going to be an easy one. Let's see what they lead here. Pelipper or Basculegion? They led Pelipper. What? Okay. Was not expecting this lead. I think I have to make a kind of a hard commitment here because I have no idea what their play is here. I'm thinking this is like either they're going to switch out Pelipper and click Flip Turn if they're like Scarf Basculegion, or this is some Rain Dance strat that I'm just not aware of at the current moment. They're going to Rain Dance plus like Wave Crash something immediately. Losing Sylveon here isn't great, but I am very suspicious of how this is led here. I think I'm just going to go for Protect Hyper Voice and see if this is some Flip Turn strategy or like some Scarf Rain Dance strat here. Yeah, this is Flip Turn, but they didn't switch out Pelipper. I thought they were going to switch out Pelipper and Flip Turn if they were going to do this. Okay, they click Tailwind. That's fine. I'm very shocked by this turn of events, but I do get a Hyper Voice off. Huge damage because I crit the Pelipper. That's a big crit, actually. Yeah, that's a big crit because I can quick attack Weather Ball now. Or I can Hyper Voice plus... Actually, I would probably just Weather Ball plus Hyper Voice realistically. Weather Ball plus Hyper Voice covers so much angles. I think I'm just going to go for Weather Ball plus Hyper Voice. Because if it's Flip Turn Bask, it could be Life Orb Swift Swim. But I think this is still fine. I'm just going to go for Hyper Voice plus Weather Ball. I don't think there's like a crazy punish here. We're going to see Basket Legion Retreat, which is really good for me. Into Arch. I mean, the Arch about to take a bunch of damage. Is this Wide Guard from the Pelipper? If it's not Wide Guard, I just get a KO into the Arch. Unless they Rain Dance here. So let's see. I mean, I got a huge turn one. I'm very shocked with what my opponent allowed me to get away with, but let's see. Okay, it is Wide Guard, but this is a huge Weather Ball, and they don't have Rain Up. Don't forget, because they don't have Rain Up, they're in such an awkward spot. So here comes a Weather Ball. This should do like 80 to 90. Yep. A little bit less. That's a really especially defensive Archaludon. Or maybe I'm just not used to like the one special attack Charizard calcs yet. Okay. I mean, what did they do this turn? Flash Cannon, I think, doesn't KO me here. I have no really big reason to switch unless the Pelipper's faster than Archaludon. I think it's still fine regardless. I think I just click Weather Ball plus Hyper Voice. I don't think there's a reason not to. If they decide, hey, I'm going to double up the Sylveon, that's fine too. And like, what's switching in on Hyper Voice? Lopunny, this is taking a bunch of damage. So if they protect Archaludon, sure. But regardless, I still think that is pretty reasonable for me because I still get a good amount of damage in the Lopunny with Hyper Voice. And then next turn, I have Giraffe Play that I can go for. I could also click Heat Wave here, realistically. Because like, if I get rid of the Lopunny and Archaludon, Kingambit just wins at this point. So I think my best play here is unironically just clicking Heat Wave Hyper Voice. Yeah, because they can't get Rain Up and KO my Sylveon at the same time. So I think I just go for Heat Wave Hyper Voice. Like, I'm willing to sack these Pokemon at this point. And yeah, they didn't switch out. Is this Rain Dance? If this is Rain Dance, that's fine. But they probably expected the Charizard to switch out to maintain control of weather, but assuming I just get the KOs, Kingambit's in a great spot. They go for Fake Out, so I could have went out into my Farigiraf as I mentioned before, but I still think this is fine. Because they go for the double up into Sylveon. Assuming I hit my Heat Waves, and Sylveon just surviving because it's the GOAT, I should just win the game here. Yep, and I just win the game here because I have Kingambit plus my Farigiraf. I also technically have won the Weather War if I want to. Do I want to preserve this? I guess there's like no reason not to, right? Yeah, I could just go Farigiraf here and click Quick Attack into the Pelipper. Yeah, that's always my play actually, because that denies Aqua Jet from the Basket Legion and the Sylveon, but also like I get the Quick Attack off in the Pelipper, then I isolate the Basket Legion. I mean, regardless, like I think I have several paths of victory here to win the game, but I just don't see why I wouldn't just switch out here into Farigiraf and get rid of Pelipper, so I don't have to worry about like Weather Ball from the Pelipper into my Gambit when I change the weather. So we go for Quick Attack and we go for a Farigiraf. I mean, this was just a really fascinating lead, I think, for my opponents, and it's just like you don't really want to lead, I think, the Pelipper here in this matchup unless you're going to go for the flip turn. Like, I understood if this was like a flip turn bait, but I feel like then at that point you might as well just flip turn with the and hard swap with the Pelipper so you can maintain weather control at the very least. They went for Last Respect, does not work out, and nice, we are able to win the game. So very huge. We didn't even get to really roar with the draft in this one, but they really need to. They really need to. Alright, we're going to see a very interesting team with Archaludon, Basket Legion, the Frostlass, Como, Sneasler, and did I miss a Mon? Did I say Charizard? Well, basically it's those Mons here. This is actually kind of interesting because I have no idea. I'm assuming this is Rain Dance Frostlass? Yeah, like this team is screaming to me Rain Dance Frostlass here. Okay. And if it's Rain Dance Frostlass, is a pretty interesting matchup, but I don't mind bring Arrow. Like, you might think, oh, I can bring the Charizard here, but I'm not sure if I think they probably have to bring the Frostlass if this is Rain Dance, because I think that's like their entire strat in the rain here, unless they have Ancient Power on their Charizard, which I guess could make sense. But I think Arrow Gambit is something I want to showcase, and I think it still does pretty good here. It's good in the Basque, it's good in the Frostlass. It should be able to do some pretty decent damage. So I do like the Arrow plus the Kingambit mode here. And then I think in the back, Garchomp's pretty solid with Sylveon. I don't really need Furry in this matchup, I feel. Like, Sylveon's really necessary to deal with Como, and Garchomp's just really good offensively against my opponent's team, especially, like, into the Archaludon, which is a big one. So let's see what my opponent decides to go with. But I feel like this is pretty solid. Froslass Sneasler, okay. So, I lead Aero Kingambit. This is fine. Yeah, this is fine. Because my Aerodactyl does live an attack here from the Froslass. Now, I'm going to Mega Evolve, and the question is, the Sneasler could switch out into our Archaludon to get the dual Wing Beat stamina boost. I think that's okay still. I think I'm just going to go for dual Wing Beat, and I'm going to go for Kowtow Cleave into the Froslass. Get as much damage as I can here. Fake out into Blizzard could put me in range, but let's see here. I do think that this is still my ideal play, and they did stay in. So if I do get the dual Wing Beat off, I'm in a fantastic shape. I also don't know if they'll click Fake Out because of the Giraffe mind game, but I would click Fake Out, I think, if I was my opponent here, because I think it's unlikely for me to bring Giraffe back, because then I lack a lot of offense against like Pokemon like Archaludon, for example. So let's see. There's no warning up. Oh, they go for Feint to cover for Wide Guard or Protect. That works for me. That works for me. I do get the KO on Sneasler, which is the biggest threat to Gambit right here. Nice. That's huge. Also, that was a really bulky Sneasler, because you saw how much a dual Wing Beat did. That's Tough Claws boosted, by the way. So that was a pretty bulky Sneasler. So this works out really well for me. This should be Blizzard then. Yeah, they go for Blizzard, which is fine. And Aerodactyl does survive, as I mentioned before. Bulky Aerodactyl is just really nice at being able to stick around, which is solid. Being frozen, though, doesn't help. Okay, because I would have really liked to get a Tailwind up. Oh, that could be really bad. Kowtow does a lot to the Froslass. What's coming in here? Basket Legion? It could be Como, too, which makes this a really rough spot. If it's Okay, Archaludon. Man, this was so safe if I... Well, I mean... I don't know if they have Aura Spear. I guess not. They have double fighting. I think my best play is just a Tailwind attempt with my Aerodactyl. And what are we clicking with you? Kowtow? Yeah, we're clicking Kowtow into the Froslass. This covers for Aurora. I don't want a Sucker Punch here. And they could protect, which is fine. Okay, ideally we get the Tailwind off, but let's see. Nice. Okay. Really good. So as long as we ensure Tailwind, we can always threaten the Archaludon with Hyper Beam. Oh, they do have Aura Spear. I'm actually shocked. Okay. So Gambit goes down, but that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. So I can go Garchomp or I can go Sylveon. Both are pretty reasonable here. I think I'm going to go Sylveon. I think Sylveon makes a lot of sense to me, and probably... I could go for Dual Wing Beat plus Hyper Beam here. Or I could go for a Rock Slide Hyper Beam, because that covers for Sturdy or Archaludon. I could also go into Garchomp here, which is also pretty reasonable. I think Rock Slide Hyper Beam is okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to go for Rock Slide Hyper Beam. Because I'll KO Archaludon with Hyper Beam. And assuming I hit the Rock Slides, that means I guarantee the knockout into Archaludon if it's sturdy, and I get the KO on the Froslass if it stays in here. So I think that's pretty good for me. What's the last that could be? Basket Legion? If it's Basket Legion, it depends on the set. It could be Scarf, but I feel pretty okay against it. Please hit the Froslass at least. Okay. So I'm just going off Hyper Beam KOing the Arch and it not being sturdy. And if it's sturdy, well, unfortunate for me, but like that's how it goes. And then I'll have to play a 50-50 against the Basket Legion if it's Bask back. Oh, are they Scarf? I think they're Scarf. No, they have to be Scarf to outspeed Sylveon. Oh, it was sturdy. I could have got the KO with Rock Slide. Okay. We get the Hyper Beam off in the Arch. It is sturdy. Yeah, this endgame is spooky now. So this is Bask. Well, actually, we know it's not Scarf Bask, so I feel like it's actually probably pretty good here. So I can go for Rock Slide and just charge up a Sylveon. I either get the KO on the Arch if I hit the Rock Slide here, which is good. And if they Aqua Jet, that's fine, because I just get in Garchomp and then I click Hyper Voice, Dragon Claw, and that's super safe. Or do I Quick Attack here? I guess I could Quick Attack. Actually, no, I don't really care about Aura Spear damage. If it's locked into Aura Spear, I don't care about the damage. Yeah, I just go for Hyper Voice, Dragon Claw. Into Basket Legion. That's always my best play, because I have one more turn of Tailwind to use. So I can go for Dragon Claw here, and I can go for Hyper Voice. Yes. I guess it technically matters if they protect the Basque. But I think Dragon Claw plus Hyper Voice is my best play here. Let's see if they protect or not. Because if the Basque doesn't protect, I should get a knockout into both. I'm a little bit worried about how much Aura Spear plus Life Orb stacks up, but yeah, I do get the Dragon Claw off, and I do get the Hyper Voice, it looks like. So I should win the game here. Because they go for Aura Spear, they target the Chomp. Or no, they target Sylveon still. I'm shocked that they're targeting Sylveon, okay. But I guess because I'm assuming they're last respecting the Chomp. But I do go for the Hyper Voice. I do KO the Basque, and that's going to be a good game. I think if it was Sash Basque, it could have been scary. But I think it would have just came down to, does Aura Spear into multiple turns of Life Orb put me in range of the Aqua Jet? I want to say no if it's Sash Basque, so I think it was fine. But yeah, okay. Thank goodness. Was able to win that one. All right, we have Incineroar, Raichu, Ceruledge, Milotic, Sinistcha, and the Eternal Flood. Okay, this is kind of the more standard Ceruledge balanced team. This one has an Incineroar. Okay. Feel pretty well. I know that the Raichu is actually very defensive on this team. Like, I know in this version it has a lot of defense, so I can go with Aerodactyl Kingambit, but it could of course force a situation which makes it a little bit awkward. I don't really want to bring Charizard here. Is it max speed on the Raichu? I don't think it is. But I don't really want to bring Charizard because I think they're forced to bring the Ceruledge in this matchup. I think it's just Aerodactyl Kingambit overall. It's either Aerodactyl Kingambit or I lead Aerodactyl Garchomp. Garchomp's actually still pretty strong here, but I think I want it as a switch. I think I'm just going to bring Kingambit plus the Aerodactyl, and then in the back I'm going to bring Garchomp and Sylveon. Because I want as much threatening power against the Ceruledge as possible. And I need to bring the Sylveon in order to threaten the Milotic, which is a big one. I'm kind of curious on who they're going to go for immediately. I think this is going to be me calling where the Raichu's starting turn 1. Oh, I could have led Garchomp immediately. That would have been really massive. Okay. I mean, I think my play here is just to click Kowtow. Okay, I have a few plays. I could click Rock Slide here. They can Fake Out. I imagine they Fake Out my Aerodactyl to prevent the Rock Slide flinch. I think I'm just going to go out into Garchomp, and I'm going to go for a Kowtow Cleave into the Ceruledge, because I need as much damage into Ceruledge as possible. I can't let it bulk up super safely. So I think I'm just going to go out into Garchomp here on potential Fake Out from the Raichu and bulk up from the Ceruledge. If they double my Kingambits this turn, good play on their part. Then I might have to go for like a Rock Slide flinch or just hope that they don't switch an Instant the next turn. Okay, they protect Ceruledge, which is fine. What did they go for Raichu? Zap Cannon? No, they Focus Blast, which is cool because I do have Sash and I'm not paralyzed at least. Okay. That's fine. It's not ideal, but it's fine. Okay. So that didn't work out exactly as I wanted, but we can go for Earthquake here pretty safely. The question is, am I sacking Gambit here? I could Sucker Punch attempt, but they could also Shadow Sneak here, go Instant. If I lose Arrow, it's really, really not ideal, but I think it's probably worth the risk. I could Sucker Punch here, but there is like, I think a really likely chance you don't sacrifice the Raichu here. So I'm gonna go for Earthquake and swap. I want to say this should be always Instant. Okay, they switch out the Ceruledge slot into Milo. Okay. Did they actually go for Kowtow into, or did, if they protect, this is reasonable, but let's see if they Zap Cannon. They could Zap Cannon here. Okay, they did protect. That's really good for me because now I get to click Earthquake plus an attack here. Okay. Or Tailwind, which is really good. Okay, perfect. Is the last one instant or sinister, I guess is a good question. Really, really good damage to Milo. Actually, I could just Rock Slide here. Why don't I Rock Slide Earthquake? Rock Slide Earthquake looks really solid here. Because if I KO to Milo, I'm in such a good position. They could protect, though. My best play could be just swapping out a Gambit. I don't need Gambit anymore, and this covers an instant switch on both of their sides. That's also a play that's actually pretty reasonable. I actually like that a lot. I like going for Earthquake switch to Gambit because this covers for an instant switch, but also if they like just protect to go for a Zap Cannon, that's fine too. Yeah, they swap out the Raichu. Is this instant? That makes sense. Perfect. I mean, I could have had a boosted Gambit, but I don't mind losing Gambit here, realistically. We go for Earthquake. I could have went for Earthquake Rock Slide. It would have done a lot. It might have actually killed the Milo, but I still think this is pretty good for me. Okay. So now Sylveon gets to come in, and Sylveon's in a pretty good spot, I'd say. Oh, they changed the team. They have Ice Beam. I did not consider that. Well, I guess it's a stadium ladder, so I could have expected it, but yeah, that's not good. I can still win this, but it looks pretty rough now. Yeah. I can win this, but it's looking pretty rough. Alright. So I'm going to Mega Evolve, go for Tailwind, because I do need the speed here, and I'm going to go for a Hyper Voice. This is probably Fake Out and something here. I don't know what else they click here, but that's fine. I might need a Rock Slide Flinch on the Raichu realistically here. They Fake Out the arrow, okay. What's the Milo attack? Oh, if it's recovered, that's fine. Because I still do a bunch of damage to the Milo. Yeah. And I can Tailwind Hyper Voice, or I can Rock Slide here. Rock Slide Hyper Voice isn't a bad play, I suppose. Because I can flinch to Milo too. I think I go for it here. Because they might not have Protect. I'm going to go for it. Because I KO the instant, then I get single target Hyper Voice off into Milo, and if I flinch it, it's really good for me. Yeah, it being Ice Beam ended up changing the matchup a lot, because I normally can play risky with the Garchomp here, but because they changed it, it definitely changes the matchup quite a lot. They protect here too. I should... No, I can't really Tailwind here, because instant then gets a parting shot off, and I can't really let that happen. Yeah, this is unfortunate. I think I'm just going to need a Rock Slide Flinch on the Raichu realistically in the end game. That's how it's looking like right now, because I need to flinch the Raichu and prevent it from KO my Aerodactyl. If my Aerodactyl goes down, I just can't beat Ceruledge. Yeah, that's just how it's going to go. So let's see if Aerodactyl can fraud one. It should always be Raichu. If you go Ceruledge here, that gives me a really decent chance of winning. Yeah, okay. So we just need a Rock Slide flinch. When there's a Rock Slide, there is a way. That is a phrase we say commonly in VGC. So let's go for this Rock Slide, and let's go for the Hyper Voice here. If they Fake Out... Wait, hold on. If they Fake Out, I'm getting a lot of damage here with Rock Slide. Wait. Okay, don't burn. Okay. I could go for this Raichu not being max speed. But it should be faster than my Sylveon, right? Like, I imagine you should be. But if you're not, I outspeed KO. Do I go for a double Rock Slide flinch, or do I go for Hyper Voice here? Hyper Voice Tailwind seems pretty tempting. I could also go for Quick Attack Rock Slide and just go for one flinch here. But I don't think... Quick Attack looks pretty close on the Raichu, realistically. I think I Tailwind Hyper Voice. Let's see. If the Milo protects, okay, it's going to come down to the Raichu. Oh, wait, hold on. If they did that, I could just Quick Attack Rock Slide, and if that did KO the Raichu, I won. Shoot. Okay, the Raichu's faster. Yeah, it's I don't think I can beat Sarah. I guess maybe if I crit Hyper Beam, I'll go for the crit Hyper Beam angle. If Quick Attack does like, how much did it do? Like, I needed 16% on the Raichu, which is possible. I could have won. Because I was surprised they protected there. That's because if I Quick Attack Rock Slide and I could have gone for the flinch into Milo, that could have actually been a game potential winning play here. Okay, because Sarah comes in. We're going to go for Hyper Voice. We need like double crit. We need a crit on a Milo, and then we need to crit the Sarah specifically with Hyper Beam. We do not crit the Milo, so the game is over here because they can go for Bitter Blade or Bulk Up. Yeah, it's Bitter Blade, so it's doing too much. I'm also not in Shadow Sneak range, but after a Scald, I 100% will be. Or they recover, like I just can't break through the Milo. So, it being Ice Beam Milo, they changed the set, so it ended up really impacting the match. But hey, that's just sometimes what it happens. If you assume a set too much, sometimes like if they do change it, like that's why like VGC is interesting, because every matchup can just be impacted a lot by one move change. And that is my showcase of the Mega Aerodactyl team. I hope this was a good way to explain of how this Mega Aerodactyl team, why it's so popular and why it's one of the strongest teams in the format. And again, it just has a lot of strong mons. You have the Aerodactyl, which is just one of the fastest mons with that tailwind support. And of course, Rock Slide can be a really big way of just like putting the odds in the favor of yourself. You have the really strong attackers, Sylveon, Garchomp, Kingambit, that just have a lot of strong offense immediately, just really powerful attacks. And of course, if you're running the Basket Legion variant over the Frugraph, it is an extremely powerful mon, especially with Last Respect, which adds a new element to the game at the cost of like not having access to the Trick Room. The Charizard, of course, is still a really powerful mon, like not much to say about it. But yeah, there's multiple ways with this team, especially the Frugraph version, because multiple forms of speed control that you have access to, ways to block priority. You have priority in your Kingambit as well as your Sylveon, the strong attackers that are also able to take attacks with just how bulky these Pokemon generally are. Yeah, there's a lot of great things about this team, and it's no surprise that this is one of the best teams in the format. If you'd like to check out more VGC content, of course, go check out my main channel and subscribe to this one, as we'll have more videos coming soon.